Hi, this is Craig Fisher with Inside Talent and TalentNet Media. My guest today is Joss Leufrancois. He's the CEO and co-founder at Visage, which is a leading AI-powered recruiting platform combining human and artificial intelligence to rapidly and effectively source the best talent. Visage has just raised 7 million Series A, led by First Analysis to streamline candidate sourcing for large enterprise employers. Joss is from France. He has been in recruitment for the past 15 years, the first 10 as co founder and COO at a staffing firm, and last five building Visage. Joss has actually never worked in France. He has had the opportunity to live in multiple cities for extended periods of time: Mumbai, London, Dubai, Singapore, Rio de Janeiro, San Francisco. He has recently relocated to Austin, Texas, where he lives on a farm with his wife and 3-year-old son. Joss is also a polo player and has more animals at home than you could count. Joss, how are you? Welcome. How's it going?
Thanks. That was a great introduction. I don't know if I'm gonna have anything else to add. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, as always, and I think that the viewers of this will come to understand what a fascinating guy Joss is. So, Joss, I think I'd like to start off today a little bit with your background. How did you get into recruiting?
Yeah, that was pretty much like a lot of us ending up in recruiting pretty much by chance. At the time I was finishing up university in France, and a friend of mine, I would rather or rather someone who used to be at my university, was starting a recruitment business in London, and he was looking for new recruits, people who would join him to set up a staffing business. And I didn't know anything about recruiting, about HR in general, but what I knew I wanted was to start a company and to go abroad. So that's how things started. And it's, the way he pitched that to me was pretty simple. We'll call companies and ask if they will need to hire anyone, and we'll find candidates and make money. And I thought that was a great concept. It didn't end up being so easy,
Right.
but force of perseverance, we started to understand the space, and the first opportunity we had was to recruit engineers for oil and gas companies. That was when oil and gas was doing so well. And actually, a common friend of ours, was working for Total in Indonesia, and he was looking for a reservoir engineer to join his team. And I, went on Monster, I went on LinkedIn. That was the very beginning of LinkedIn, and found a few candidates. Had him interview those candidates, and he ended up hiring one. Uh, and I believe we make $52,000 as a recruitment fee. I was 22 years old. That was the best day of my life. That's how things really started. Fast forward, 10 years later, we were in 12 countries doing $50 million revenue, servicing some of the largest energy companies out there. And that was, all the exposure I think I needed to understand what was required on the market. And that's how the idea of Visage came about.
Sort of getting to how Visage came about. So tell us a little bit about that. How did the concept come to you,
Mhm.
and what built it?
Yeah. So, managing a team of recruiter, my biggest frustration was the fact that they would spend their life on LinkedIn, on job board, trying to identify these potential candidates, one by one manually, and then try to find their contact details, reach out. Uh, and I thought there should be a better way. I really wanted them to focus on building a relationship with their clients, with the candidates, and they couldn't do that because they were so busy doing the manual work. So I looked at the available technology back then. That was the very beginning of AI in software, and I tested this platform. And what I could find is that they were not very accurate, and they were struggling with the ambiguity that I find I always find in a job description or in a resume. So I was thinking, how can we fix this? And this is how the idea of having sourcers or experts take care of this, very tricky part, which is the match, looking at the job description and have them focus on this part and automate all the rest. So that's how the idea, came about. It took us 3 years to figure out the right model. But essentially, what is it today? That you are an employer or recruiter working at an employer, and you don't have the time to source, or you don't have the tools to source. What you can do is simply post the job on Visage, then automatically match to a community of sourcers. So we've got over 4,000 sourcers worldwide, but the job will only go to those sourcers who are the most likely to have relevant candidates to refer. So that's, for instance, sourcer specialists in software or in marketing, and they will go on the open web, on job boards, and identify potential candidates for your job opening. So we've added some level of intelligence. We don't pass on all the candidates. There is what we call our AI matching that will filter and make sure you only review the right candidates. But right now, the tool is performing at with 80% accuracy. So what that means is that 80% of the time, our clients end up approving and contacting the candidates that the crowd has referred. So they can really focus on building those relationships with candidates and scaling. So that's kind of the idea and how it has evolved over the years to become what it is today.
80% is pretty amazing. What kind of roles and what kind of companies are you doing this for?
Yeah, great question. So we focus on the enterprise segment. That's what we are used to. That's part of my past experience. So our clients are the likes of Siemens, Walmart, Walgreens, and they work with us internationally. So what they like about Visage is that they can post a marketing manager job in Singapore one day and a software engineer job in San Francisco the next. And the reason why we are able to do that is because of the size and scale of the crowd. Over 4,000, especially sourcers. So we can cover, pretty much every discipline, industry, and domain of expertise, as long as we are looking at, I would say, professional and technical jobs. So we are more in, our sweet spot are those jobs where you're sitting behind a computer, as opposed to entry level, hourly workers, or perhaps the VP side. So we are right in the middle, which constitute, by the way, 50% of the workforce in the US, and this is where probably you have the most need for high volume sourcing, and that's what we do.
Right. Yeah. And so, I guess with any kind of high volume sourcing, there are ups and downs. Can you talk about what the landscape is like right now and sort of what that's meant?
I mean, what's interesting is that in our space, there is a lot of noise and people trying to solve what we want to solve, and rightly so. The market size is enormous. You are looking at $200 billion potential market, and the reality is that it's a very hard problem to solve. Candidates, the resume, the way it's written, the way job description are written, and I would say a lot of the ups and downs that we've experienced throughout the life of Visage has been around finding the right models and refining, so we could not only deliver the right results and the accuracy that we have, but also have a go-to-market, a business model that worked. If I reflect the first 3 years, we didn't have a product that worked, so we were constantly launching, trying to get some beta customers, and then the product didn't work, and then relaunching, and then about to run out of money, trying to scramble and raise some initial funds. And that has happened multiple times. And that's why I always say, startups is never for the faint-hearted. But startups in our space, it's even harder because, if I reflect on the latest round that we've just mentioned, Visage has really world-class metrics when we look at the growth, the net dollar retention, the fact that clients keep buying from us and keep increasing their spend. So all these metrics were world class, but that didn't make it easy for us to fundraise, and that's because of the how much competition there is in our space. And that's why I really appreciated, going out there and fundraising, and ending up working with First Analysis, which is the lead investor, and Corey Greendale, because unlike a lot of the other VCs, venture capital out there, Corey and his firm have spent 10 years analyzing the space and trying to understand what makes Visage unique and why Visage is going to be one of those that's not going to get stuck at, let's say, $10 million of revenue and go and become this, what everybody wants to be, a unicorn, $1 billion company worth $1 billion. So that's really the fun. When I reflect on the fundraising journey and the challenges and so on, it was really about convincing why Visage was unique and why we could be this highly scalable company. And we were really fighting an upward hill, in the sense that, so far there has been one huge exit, one huge exit in your space, LinkedIn. That's the one that everybody refers to. But aside from that, you've seen past few years, you've got companies that have been very well funded. I'm thinking about the Hire.com and of the world, and didn't do so well. So investors were quite reluctant to look at the space to start with.
Your team, I think, is fully remote. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's and people always ask me if it's because of COVID and so on, but that's actually not what happened. We were sitting in San Francisco, like a lot of startups, building technology, and we simply run out of money. So we sent everybody home, and we got used to working that way. So when you look at the team today, we are, last time I counted, so we are over 50 people now working on this, and we've got 17 nationalities, and people pretty much working from anywhere. We've got a good representation in the US, Canada, and also Europe, but we've got colleagues in the Philippines, colleagues in Romania, and that's really been our strength, because our clients, again, they want us to be able to service anywhere in the world, to tackle their sourcing challenges anywhere in the world, and having this as a team, notwithstanding the fact that 50% of we've got a ratio male-female, 50% male, 50% female at Visage, which is amazing for a tech company. And beyond that, if you look at the executive leadership, the top roles in the company, you've got this representation as well. So I think this is what has made us so far adaptable, successful, and the culture that everybody talks about when people are joining, and we ask why they enjoy the experience so far. They always talk about the team, the people, and the fact that it's a very nice place to come with your skills and develop. I mean, of course, our growth has been phenomenal in the past few years, but we've done so in a very mindful way. And I'm also thinking about the people who have joined us from diverse backgrounds, how this feels like a place where they can develop, a safe place. So what is interesting is that I used to hide the fact that I was working from home. When working with these Fortune 500, I will try to make an effort so I appear to work in an office. But now everybody works from home, so I don't have to justify. It's okay if my dog barks, and it's okay if there is my kid interrupting. So I think overall that has been such a great thing for us, and the team.
Well, it helps to have a diverse crew when you're tackling these global challenges, certainly. But other than being sort of, openly working from home, what other effects has the pandemic had on your business?
Yeah, that's interesting. Honestly, when we were, I always remember we were going to organize a retreat with the team and a select few clients. That was right when things started to deteriorate as far as the virus coming to the US. And the week before the travel ban, the Europeans not being able to, that was supposed to be when we had this retreat, and I didn't feel right about it, so I called it off 3 days before. We were all supposed to meet in Miami, and as it happened, one of our colleagues tested positive and had COVID the week after. This colleague would have been with us, who all have been infected. Thank goodness he did fine, and that wasn't a big deal for him. But then I really started to think, what are we gonna do? I mean, we are in recruiting, we are doomed. Nobody's gonna hire in the next few months, and we started really thinking aggressively how we are going to get on the other side of this alive. So we worked with the team and we reduced salaries, by 20% across the board, and people understood. And we started focusing on these market, the enterprise segment. We are still doing a bit of SMBs and mid-market, and we realized that there was much more resilience in this segment. And whilst global hiring volume were low, they were still hiring or needing our technology. So we had a quarter where things went, or revenue dropped by 40%, and then things started to pick up again, and at a faster pace than before. And the only reason, beyond the fact that our product is great and it's got a market and it's delivering the result, I think the TA leaders used to have to arbitrate between hiring more people and bringing a technology that somewhat automate part of the process. And they realized that it was easier for them to come because they had the needs, they had the volume of recruiting to deliver, but it was easier for them to justify bringing to technology than bringing headcount to their CFO, to the organization. And I believe that's what has helped us grow so fast in the past. Visage has tripled the revenue in 2020, which you never imagine that would be possible in such an economic context.
So that probably helped sell investors on the concept, right? So why don't you break down for us what is a Series A and what does it take to get there?
Yeah, so that's an interesting. So Series A is typically I would say the first very large round that a startup will do. The life cycle of a startup, you bootstrap, means that you use your own savings and try to have an MVP, minimum viable product, something you can show potentially to investors. Then you go around and ask family and friends and joint investors to give you small checks. That's what we did. We had a number of small checks that came in, as little as $2,000 from friends of mine, all the way to perhaps $50,000, $100,000. That's really what helped us kind of build the product even further and get ready to launch. We launched a couple of times, kill, relaunch, and then was the seed round. This is where the institutional money comes in the picture. And the expectation is usually you need to have a product and some validation from the market, some people buying your product. I would say that I think the ratio is pretty, like 90% of the startups, they never get to an institutional round. So it's already, the probability to happen is pretty slim. But then the big test is the Series A. This is when investors want to see that, yeah, you've got a great idea, a great PowerPoint or a great product, but clients are buying it and are buying more, and there is somewhat you can demonstrate that you've got a scalable and repeatable business model. Even if you have not figured out everything, they know that if they are to invest $5-10 million, this is what could potentially, that those are the likely outcomes. And this is what I think less than 3% of the technology startups make it to the Series A. this is a very hard process. I've, from a personal perspective, that was the hardest thing I've done. That was a roller coaster. You go out there and you show your baby, and people are saying that your baby is ugly. This is what's happening, and you get to hear that probably 100 times over 2 months. So it's kind of navigating and taking feedback every time you meet some investor, and the reality is that what I find is that all the objections I received throughout the fundraising process, they were all valid in some way, whether they were right about the business or the market or not. That was not the issue. It was more about my ability to present the opportunity and say why it was us, Visage, and why we were different from all these other deck and investments that they passed on.
So you mentioned earlier that the talent space is crowded. There's only been one major exit. You've just talked about some of the other trials and tribulations you went through. Are there other challenges for fundraising in the staffing or talent space that people should know about?
I think it's going to be generally around how noisy and busy the space, and the fact that there hasn't been any significant exit. I think the trick is to go and try to find these investors that will be able to navigate and understand, have more. Look, if you look at typical VC, they either have invested in one of the companies in our space that didn't go well, so they are burned already. They have, or they have invested in one that is still alive and that's thriving. And rarely you will have some VCs that have not touched the space yet and might be willing to invest and consider the time. But it's not a sexy space. You can be sure about it. So you'll have to definitely, it's not like I was launching one of these COVID beneficiary startups that doesn't matter if you've got the traction or not, you will raise money because this is what's the entire paradox. There is so much capital out there, so much money, yet it's not easy to get it if you're in the wrong space. Even if you have you demonstrate the progress, even if you've got a world-class team like we've been able to assemble at Visage.
So you mentioned the investors. How do they expect you to use the funds once you raise your Series A?
Yeah, they come at a stage where there has been a little bit of de-risking, but we're still talking about early stage. Series A, you've got B, C, D, and then IPO. There are some variation of the model, but right now the expectation, this is the usual, what we call 3-3-2-2. It means that you need to triple the size of the company over 2 years, times three. So we've already done times 3. We need to do 3x next in 2021, and then 2x 2022, 2x 2023. So that's kind of the expectation. In terms of the use of proceed, that's obviously for us to kind of decide, but we've have a clear plan right now for us. We are going to invest heavily. Well, you tell me your product is already, quite mature. You've got clients enjoying getting the results and so on. So why not put everything in marketing and sales? Well, that's definitely a consideration. But what we want to do at least in this year is to solidify the product, bring some of these features, and develop the intelligence on the platform, because we believe that's whatever investment we make in the product now is just going to help us scale later on. So we will start really experimenting at scale in marketing. We are going to hire a sales team that's already happening right now. So far, we were a team of 2 salespeople, including me, and now we are going to be able to have more team members doing that. So probably 40% of the money will go towards the product, technology, intelligence, developing and refining those algorithms. And then it's gonna be sales and marketing for the rest.
So that's 2021. What happens beyond that?
That's a great question. Look, the vision of Visage is that we want to make a product where anybody, whether you are a recruiter, hiring manager, can use to identify and engage with potential candidates. The vision is that unlike a lot of the sourcing tools and platforms out there, we want to be able to come as a solution as we do the sourcing for you, as opposed to give you a tool that will help you do the sourcing in a more efficient way yourself. So I always make the comparison with like self-driving car and so on. We're not trying to build a better car that's gonna be safer or faster or so on. We want to build this self-driving car, and in this journey there will be a lot of work around building those algorithms so they get smarter and smarter. There is less human involved, less touch points, and make a real an experience that feels like a consumer experience. In our space, you've got a lot of huge dashboard and clunky products. And I think there is definitely an opportunity to bring a consumer grade product to enterprise clients, especially as the new generation of buyers and recruiters are coming into. They are used to their app on their phone. They are used to products that are really well thought. And when you give them a antiquated ATS or sourcing tool, they're like, why do I need to work with that? So my goal for Visage is to obviously to bring it as far as possible to deliver this. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be boring to recruit talent. I always tell my team that we may not be Elon Musk planning to colonize Mars or have this grand plan, but what do you need to for these plans? You need talent, and this is where we've got our place. We might not be doing this moonshot project, but we'll help you put the team together to achieve those.
Excellent, fascinating stuff as always. Joss Leufrancois, this is great. Congratulations on your round of fundraising, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me.